Secondary dominants. This course has been centered around using diatonicism and how to understand music structure as it pertains to a particular key or tonal center. In this video, we'll be taking our first step into a much larger, more chromatic world that involves notes and chords that are used from outside of the key. When a piece of music is purely diatonic, the only accidentals that you'll see will be the raised sixth or sixth and seventh in a minor key, and all the chords will be based on diatonic triads. Whenever you involve chromatic harmony, though, by definition, at least one chord tone will show an accidental, and the chord tone will not be based on a diatonic triad. Here the F sharp added to the D chord makes it D major, which does not belong in the key of C. This would make it a chromatic chord. And this particular chromatic chord would be called a secondary dominant. A secondary dominant is the use of a dominant chord, a 5, from outside the key to resolve to a non-tonic diatonic chord. In the previous example, we used a 1 to a 2 to a 5 back to 1, a normal strong progression. But say we wanted to especially emphasize a chord in this progression, like the 5. To do that, we would focus on the previous chord which leads us to the 5. We know that a 5 to 1, so we want to make the relationship between these two chords stronger. Since we know that a dominant 5 to 1 is our strongest harmonic motion, if we want to emphasize the G, we should ask ourselves, what is the 5, the dominant, in the key of G? Since the answer is D major, we can use a D major chord to strengthen the motion and emphasize the G chord, even though we're in the key of C. Notice how this relationship is reflected in the Roman numeral as 5 of 5, and not a major 2. The purpose of figured bass Roman numerals is to describe the functional relationship that a chord has with a key. So 5 of 5 describes what relationship D major has in the key of C. Also notice how our secondary leading tone, F sharp, resolves to the secondary tonic, as it should in any 5 to 1 motion. Secondary dominants operate just as normal dominants, and so it's common to see them also as dominant 7th chords, with the 7th also resolving down, as it normally would. Here's another example, this time in the key of D minor. If we want to, again, emphasize our 5, what is the dominant in the key of A? E major is the dominant in the key of A, so we can change that diminished 2 to an E major. And once again we have a 5 of 5 resolving to 5. While 5 of 5 is the most common use of a secondary dominant, they can be used for any non-tonic diatonic chord. But before we do that, pause the video and take a couple minutes and analyze this simple progression. Hopefully you identified these correctly. So say we want to make a stronger motion to this minor 6 chord. We could use a secondary dominant. What is the dominant in the key of C minor? The answer, of course, is G major, and we can insert this before our C minor for strong emphasis. How do you think we would label the secondary dominant? This would be a G7 over B, which would be a 5/7 of 6, resolving to 6, with the secondary leading tone and the 7th resolving correctly. Practice. Write and resolve the above secondary dominant progressions. Each one should have 2 chords, the secondary dominant and the chord to which it's resolving. Again, what is most important is not the voicing, but that you resolved the right notes correctly. Notice in the first one that the 5/7 of 4 is just a 1 chord made into a dominant 7th, which is still enough to make it a chromatic chord. And in the last one, since the secondary dominant is in the 3rd inversion, the 7th in the bass must resolve down by a step, since it's the 7th of the chord, meaning that the following chord must be in 1st inversion.